Hey there, and welcome to the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. Up until recently, I thought we had pretty good systems in place. We used project management software, and tasks like the podcast had complete workflows built out. We had great communication, I thought, between the team, and we were able to look at different tasks within our project management software and see what needed to be done and when it needed to be done. But even though on the surface we had all of these processes in place, as I said, I thought we had pretty good processes in place. Multiple times a day, I would find myself getting angry and frustrated, and I'll be honest, downright pissed that the ball was being dropped time after time. Because after all, this is my business. I am the face of the business. So if something goes out that isn't perfect, it reflects on me. If a podcast goes out and it hasn't been edited correctly, it reflects on me. If you download something and it doesn't work, it reflects on me. And as a result, I can say with hindsight, as a result of those processes not being in the state that I thought they would, looking back on 2024, I can see that we highly likely lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue because I was not confident that we could deliver if we launched anything new. 2024 for me felt like I had a fire hose filling up a bucket and the water was running out because of the leaks faster than I could ever fill it. And honestly, it was exhausting. And it would be really easy for me to blame my team. And heck, there were times when I did blame the team. But the truth is, I am the leader. And if the wheels are falling off, I should have done something before it got this far. So fast forward to July, and I knew things had to change. We'd fallen behind in the simplest of projects because we were constantly waiting. We were waiting for someone to deliver something. We were waiting for graphics. We were waiting for podcast editing. We were waiting for someone on the team to build a funnel. Everything seemed to be waiting for someone else so that we could get our job done. And you can probably hear, even now, the frustration in my voice. Because even though we had this project management software, no one was really keeping track, or potentially the right person wasn't being notified when one task had been completed and it was time for the next person to start their part. So there was a lot of relying on notes or emails or WhatsApp communications or downright in our brains to know what needed to be done. And honestly, it was at this point that I felt like chucking it all in. Everything felt too hard. It just felt like everything I did took forever. And well, not just everything we did took forever. And it was never at the level or the quality that I wanted it to be at. And remember, this is my brand, right? So I have standards and my standards are very, very high. And everybody on my team knows that we have high standards. So I knew I had to make a choice. If I chose to stay, something had to change. And for us to grow, about 90% of what was on my plate had to be taken off. And the obvious person for most of that was Joed, our business manager. I mean, after all, as the manager of the business, that's her job, to take things off my plate. You see, the thing is, through a series of events over, I'm going to say the course of a year or so, and through no one's particular fault, Joed had fallen into a position where she was essentially just checking off tasks. We would add them into Asana and she would go ahead and do them. Now, in theory, this sounds good, but the reality is, in this scenario, it was generally falling on me to identify every single issue and then document it and then create a task and then make sure it was done. So there was so much thinking and then the onus being on me to document it or add it into the project management software, and then for me to follow up. And what happened was that we slipped into this pattern of Sal being the dictator, Sal dictating and everybody else just doing. And it was not because I felt like I needed to control. It was just a series of a whole bunch of external and internal events that made it easier for me to just be the person who was in charge. But the result of that was that my team was not empowered to think on their own, which at its heart was in direct opposition to our core values of owning it and thinking ahead. And so once I'd identified this issue, and let me be clear, it wasn't like I just woke up one day with the answer. It was a lot of whinging to my husband on walks. It was a lot of frustration. I had to take a really good, long, hard look at myself and admit that I had made mistakes. But once I got past that and I realized that we were at this position again where if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, about 3 years ago, I had the same thing where everybody in the company either got fired or left, and I was back at ground zero because what had gotten us here would not get us there. What had gotten us to there was not going to get us to where we are now. And now we're at the same point. What got us to here is not going to get us to the next steps that I have mapped out for the business. Something had to change. And so I had a meeting with Joed and I pulled out her original job description and I asked her, I want you to be this person again. What do we have to do to get you back into this business manager role? We identified that our systems were lacking and we needed to hire a specialist person to pick up those specific tasks that were related to our day-to-day operations. Most of Joed's time was going in basic tasks or tasks that weren't management tasks. All of these things that happen inside of our CRM. And we also needed a full-time marketing coordinator, not a part-time one, because I was taking a lot of the marketing stuff on myself just because it was quicker and easier for me to do. So Joed was spending her days doing things like creating calendars or sending out emails that I'd written, and that was not thinking ahead. That was not going to grow the business. Now, during all of this upheaval, I happened across a podcast where the host mentioned a book called Come Up for Air by Nick Sonnenberg. I mean, just the title, Come Up for Air. How many times have we found ourselves saying, if I could, I'll get to it when I come up for air. I'll get to it when I come up for air. Once I have some time and a moment to breathe, I'll get around to that. So the book is called Come Up for Air by Nick Sonnenberg. And it was about creating an organization where knowledge is easily retrieved and hours every week are saved and teams work harmoniously and productively. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, that is exactly what we need. So I brought 2 copies of the book, one for me and one for Joed. And I said, let's read this together. We set ourselves targets to read 3 chapters a week and then report on how we could implement what we'd learned. We even went so far as to put an agenda inside of our management meetings, inside of Asana, so that we would make sure we didn't overlook this very important thing. It seemed like it was going to be easy. You needed a knowledge base. Yep, check. We already had that. You needed project management software. Check. We've been using this for 10 years. You needed a team communication tool. Yep, we've got that. And you needed email. I mean, I honestly thought when I got the book, what can I learn? Because we have all of this. And I wouldn't be recording this podcast if I didn't learn a lot now, would I? Because little did I know that the fixing up our systems, a little bit of a zhuzh, would almost lead to the implosion of this business. And so I have brought Joed on. She's very uncomfortable being in front of the camera, but I've brought her on to talk about the good, the bad, and honestly, the downright ugly of creating systems and processes that will scale your business so that you can learn from our mistakes and our frustrations and, of course, our wins. So, Joed, for the first time ever, welcome to the Bringing Business to Retail podcast.
Hi, Sal. It's weird.
You're usually on the other side of the camera.
Yes, and that's usually like how I prefer it. But this thing that we're gonna be talking about, it's as I've mentioned to you before, like it's something like it's like a baby type of thing for the company. So it is nice. I'm really looking forward to talking about it with you.
Well, thank you for getting out of your comfort zone to come on and share everything. So the last few months haven't been pretty, have they?
No, it's I would say it's the most challenging that we've had. It is very, very confronting, but also at the same time, I know that it's what you need to grow. So, and as you mentioned, I did feel at sometimes like, oh, I'm just checking off tasks. So, like, I know that this is not my job, but yeah. So I know it was, yeah. It's not really pretty.
No. So you were tasked as the business manager with implementing Nick Sonnenberg's system. So, can you just walk us through what it is for those people who probably haven't read the book? Because the funny thing is, I had never heard of. I thought I was pretty up to date with books on systems and processes and entrepreneurship, and I had never heard about this book. So, I'm guessing a lot of other people haven't either. So, maybe you could just walk us through the system and then tell us. We'll get into how implementing it
Yeah.
has been a very big challenge.
Yeah. So just to keep it simple, when I was reading the book, it is basically improving efficiency. But what's nice about the book is it did give you like step by step as to like where to look at and how you can implement it in your system. So like improving communication tools and then making sure that you can find things easily. So these are things that can reduce the time that you take a look. So like the egg hunt, like the trash, there's no treasure finding. So we minimize that one. So and actually it's the title of the book itself, Come Up for Air. Like actually when Sal brought it up during one of our meetings, I was like, that is actually sometimes the phrase that we use. We're like, oh, okay, when we have some time to, we have a break and then we can take a look at our systems, take a look at what we need to do. So it was actually very appropriate title for what it has actually going to bring to your company, because oftentimes we do get in this cycle. So that one, it helps us keep things in check. And it's actually very easy to keep things in check with the help of the book. Yeah, so that's the basic system, like making sure everything, you can find anything like in one place, and then make sure that the communication happens where it needs to happen. So like that's like the basic of that book.
Okay, so I went into Asana and I looked, and our first meeting to discuss this was the 9th of August. We're now at the end of December. So essentially, 5 months we've been, I'm going to say, working on this.
Yes.
Working through this might be a better
Through
way of
this, yeah.
talking about it. Did you think it would take this long?
Given our work around, given our time in terms of like producing output, I didn't think it would take this long.
I didn't.
Like, yeah, because like, like for example, I mean, our funnels, we were able to check it out. Like, yeah, I know we said like it's long, but we still be able to check it out like a little bit faster compared to like other companies that I know. I never thought that it's gonna take this long because I know that I've been documenting all those things on the
We
back
had,
end.
I
And
mean, on paper, we had the things, right?
yes,
We had
correct.
the knowledge base, we had the training portal, we've been using project management software for 10 years. So on
Yes,
paper, we had all of the things.
correct.
Where, I guess, where have we gone wrong?
It's actually, I think, first of all, it's that thing that we think that, oh, we have everything. So it's going to be easy to just translate it into like the framework that Come Up for Air suggests, that Nick suggests. So, and also like, oh, we know how to use Asana. We have that mindset that we have these things, we know what to do. Like, oh, it's going to be easy to just roll out. It's going to be easy to, oh, create a KB. Oh, we can do that. What I didn't know is, or like what I didn't think it's going to happen is that like once you start to really sit down on it and then you start to think, okay, how will people use it? How will we be able to, for example, roll it out? Where do we start? Actually, I think it's where do we start, because we have all these things scattered around. So like starting, like trying to come up like, oh, okay, we have it in Google Docs, we have it in Asana, but like which one are we going to use? So like the tools. So for me, it's where to start, even though the framework is there. But since we already have a lot of things, I think it would have been easier if you start from scratch. Like,
From
for
scratch.
example, you're a
Yeah.
new company. Yeah. You're a new company. You don't need to also do the day-to-day things. And then because it takes time to think, like how to map out these things. So I think that's where, for me, it got started ugly. Thinking about, shucks, okay, if I am a new employee, where would I look? What do they need? And then like if I'm on the admin side, okay, what are the things that I need? So like it's like suddenly all this, it's nice that I have all these ideas in my head because of that book, but at the same time, it's like information overload. So trying to strip it down so that I can start was the challenge. And also, I really felt pressured because it's a big thing for the company because it talks about helping our team members be more efficient. It's about making them improve their productivity. So it is something that will directly hit them if I do something wrong. So it's that pressure also. So and it's yeah, it's very challenging at the start.
Okay, it's interesting. I hadn't really thought about it until you mentioned it. But one of the challenges that you had was you had to think of both sides of the story. So you had to think from the management side, what needs to be done, and then from the team side, what do they need to be done? Because they're not the same thing. And so it's almost like two sets of processes for the same job have to be created and then work symbiotically.
Correct. Yeah, that's the reason why also like I think during our meeting earlier this week, I was like, "Oh, Sal, I did this because like I realized, right?" So it's like, okay, even if like I know that we always have like the admin side and I mean the management side and then the team side, since it is still a growing system, a growing, a work in progress, from time to time, I would still come up with like, oh, we really need this because like at first I discussed this with you and then you said no, it's already in GHL. Like they can go through the course, they can check it off. And then, but like as it's rolling out, you start to see like, no, it's not enough. Like there needs to be some sort of system that we need to put on just to make sure that they will check it off. And then we'll be like, oh, maybe that's why they do it that way because it really needs an admin. So the good thing though is like at least now we do have some other inputs as well. So you're able to like, check it with somebody else as well. Especially with the master class that you've been attending, you've been joining. It's really good to get feedback also. It's not just the two of us like discussing like what needs to happen because having somebody or a group of people to talk to discuss things is really nice. It gives you a different perspective.
That's interesting. So, what you're talking about there is the mastermind that I joined, and we did a podcast on that a few weeks ago. In fact, by the time this one goes to air, it probably would have been a couple of months ago. And I talked about how I joined a mastermind. And this was after we had already started the journey of putting this system in place. And I remember the Jasmine's manager showing us the level of their Asana, and you and I just looking at it going, we don't have that, and we don't have that, and we don't have that. And it was these little things that, as you said, you kind of forget that you even do. And so when you start stepping things out for a proper, robust process, it probably needs to be reviewed by somebody before it goes live. So in our case, if we're creating a download, it gets written and then it has to come to me for review. And then it goes back to the person to implement the revisions. And then it comes back to me to review. And we
Yeah.
didn't have any of those things. We just had create the thing.
Yeah.
And then it needed graphics. So then it goes to the graphics person and then it comes back to be reviewed and then it gets revisions. And all of a sudden, the thing that you thought had 20 steps
Trust.
actually has probably 150 steps.
Yes. And also because we didn't have that before. I mean, yes, we do have the steps into it. Like for example, I do check the quality of it, but because sometimes like if it's fast, remember like there will be times like, oh my God, Joed, we need to do this. We forget the checking like thoroughly part. So because of that, you'll come back like, what is this? Why did you get it like so there is that frustration and my mind is like disappointed in myself. It's like I know I checked it, but of course, like because I needed to think that I need to check it, even if it's that simple, having that extra space in the mind to occupy that you need to remember that you need to check it, it already takes away a little bit of time from everything else. So that's why, like now, when I'm going through like our processes, it's now like, oh, okay, even if it's a very simple task as like checking, for example, make sure that it is like explicit content or something like that, it is better to put it there. There is like no task so simple that you don't want to put in our template because right now my target is with which you've always told me as well is like you want that if for example I decide to take a break or like somebody from the team who does this takes a break, I can just jump in and then like follow the things so that they can proceed with doing that, and then nothing is gonna be left behind, nothing is gonna be stopped just because this person is not gonna come. So yeah, it's those things, like no task is small that needs to be, because initially I think there will be times like, oh, it feels like it's a common sense, it's common sense, or like it's a default that you need to
Yes.
check this.
And that's, I think you had a really good thing, a really good example just then. And this one only just happened like when I was driving, literally as I was driving home the other day. And I sent you a WhatsApp message and said, this was for the podcast workflow. And I said, Joanne, we need a task to see whether I need to mark it as explicit or not when we upload the system. Because if we've got some little salty words in there, we are supposed to make it very aware that that's the case, and there will be a little E. And like you said, it's things that get done, or just because you are so used to doing it. But if you're on holidays and Sam has to step in and do it, he wouldn't know to do that. And so even now, 5 months later, when we think we have something just about done, we're still finding bits and pieces where it's like, oh, we haven't done this and we haven't done that. And we've just had Cooper come on as our marketing coordinator, and he's asking questions, and we're like, oh, we didn't have that either. And so I feel like, I don't know if it'll ever be finished. I'm sure it will be, but I know for probably the next 3 months, even just the thing we think is done will probably continue to be refined as we start to realize that, oh, I know yesterday you mentioned we can do things in tandem. So one person can be doing one thing, like the video could be editing while the graphics people are doing the graphics. Like they don't have to wait one for the other. They can do it in tandem. And we hadn't thought through that before because we were so used to just doing what we always did. And I remember thinking when I read the book, how does this make you more productive? Is he just going to say don't do meetings? And are a whole other conversation that we can get into that we've adopted. But I can see now why. One, I'm not forever sending messages saying, where do I find something, which I think I used to do 20 times a day. And two, we can plan our days so much easier because we know what we have to do. And one of the things that you just said about no task is too small, I think where the frustration lies as a business owner is the disconnect between the outcome that we want and what we think needs to be done to get there. So if you've got a retail store, you think opening the shop should take 5 minutes because that's what it takes you. But the reality is the person has to come in, they have to turn on the lights, they might have to open the windows, they have to count the till, they turn the cameras on. Like there's a whole bunch of things that maybe you hadn't thought about. Maybe they have to make sure that there's toilet paper in the toilet. Like there's so many little things that you just kind of take for granted. But actually, when you are required to get someone to work through the process, all of a sudden we still see here's a gap, here's a gap, here's a gap. Here's what we have to add in. This needs to come to Sal to review. This needs to go to Joed to review. All those sorts of things. And so I can see how you become more productive because not nobody is waiting, but there's a lot less delay, asking and waiting. That's what I've found.
Yeah, I agree with that. Where was that? Oh, remember when you asked me, like, for example, how long to build this funnel? And
Oh,
then
this is interesting. I was going to ask you about this. So again, we work really fast as a team. We always have, and we're building out. By the time this goes live, it will already be live, but we've built out this new profit calculator. And Joed, if they want to get it, where do they have to go? selenaknight.com forward
dash profit. Let's just go with profit.
profit. There you go.
See, come on, we haven't decided, so I'll put it in the KB. I mean, I'll put it in our Asana so that every time we do that, we have a word for it.
Yes,
We have
yes.
a link.
So if you want the calculator, you can grab that. But the other thing was, I wanted to know how long, if I want to deploy something, how long does it really take? Because I remember saying to you, I think we should be able to do this within 2 days. And you said 5 days. And I'm like, I think we need to like write this down. Because if you're right, I have to seriously change my expectations because that is a huge difference. We're not talking an hour or two. We're talking 2 days to 5 days. And it means if I get one of Sal's great ideas that I want to implement, it is not something we can do in 2 days. It might take 5 days. So what are we doing right now to track this?
Yeah. So right now, first of all, we also actually we started implementing Clockify so that we can track the time that we build things. So since Sam has just been onboarded and then starting to get to know the system, that is actually taking time as well, not just from him, from me too. But now at least we get to see like, oh, okay, this is really very easy as long as we have the template and then like it's just checking off tasks. So actually the very first version of our template, our opt-in template is I would say 50% different from where it is right now. Because when we were going through it, I know that I insisted that okay, let's just keep it this way first because it's better to have something in place rather like, like I just realized it like in the sense that I shouldn't overthink things because as we go through it, we'll be able to refine things because it is now like a hand in hand thing. Like there's experience and then there's the actual that you're gonna put into. So now, yeah, so we have the Clockify. We're using Clockify to track the time that we do the task within. And then we have it in Asana, wherein we've specified. So we have like planning, we have the development of the content, we have the development in terms of like the technical development setup. So we have that. And then we start to add the dependencies also in Asana as we go on. I can see now that, oh, okay, this needs to be checked off first before we can proceed with this. And then, for example, that first part alone, wherein we want to map out the customer journey, we want to write out the emails that you want. And I'm all for the segmentation and those type of things, but I know that it's gonna take a lot. It's gonna take time to write out the journey and write out the emails. So just that alone, it will take some time even if like for example the technical part is going to be fast because as long as you have everything it's going to be fast, but we didn't see that until we really went through this like initial phase of like implementing the type of template and then doing this freebie, this opt-in, and then seeing now like, oh, okay, it's really going to take some time to get from yeah your expectation of 2 days versus versus my expectation, right? Because I'm thinking also like, oh, because I need to sell to check off, and then like of course with the time zone and that things. I mean that didn't add to the it added to the challenge, like our time zones as well. So yeah, for now it's really I would say Clockify and then Asana task and then making sure. Oh, the thing that I added also in our Asana is since right now we're still in our growing pains in the sense that it is not very still easy to see like where we are at. I did add like one at the top, like just for checking, so that that is like where we see where we are at in terms of like, for example, your review as well for your check offs. So I did add that just so like for you, because I know that for you, you wanted to see like where are we at right now in just like one place. So I think in terms of system, like for example, in Jasmine's team, they have a different system. But for us, this is our system because this is like how your expectation were. So yeah, so that's how we are going about it. And as what happened just right now, we identified that I needed to add that redirect in the
Yeah,
in the template because
add
I've
that into
never.
yeah.
Yeah, right. So it's because of those things that I get to see like, oh, where are the gaps? Where are the cracks? And then now as we go on, we are able to fill in the gap. So that is what we're doing right now. It's a constant work in progress. It's a constant like, and I would say not being afraid to ask. So it took a while before I mean I know I ask you stuff, but if it's these things like because sometimes I would think like, this seems like a very easy question. Do I really need to ask? So usually those are the things that go through my head. But now like in my mind, instead of wasting a minute to think about that, I'll just ask Sal. I mean, it's just an easy yes or no. And even if she says, it's common sense that it's a yes in my mind, at least she answered my question. So, so that's how I think about it right now.
You were just talking about the fact that we've been building out this profit calculator, and I'm trying to relate it back to the people who are listening. So, the way we're trying to relate this back to the people who are listening is a really good example is a product launch. You don't just launch a product or a promotion. There are so many steps. And in fact, we step a lot of those out in the ultimate promo run sheet. But right back to thinking of the promotion and then contacting the supplier. And then once you've got that confirmation, you have to order the products, and then you have the graphics, and then you have the emails, and then someone has to upload them to the website, and then you may have to move them around in store, and then things also have to be reviewed all the way through there. And there are so many steps that we just take for granted. And even as I'm saying it, I'm thinking there's many steps in between those that need to be taken into account. And so we think we can just, I'll just run a promotion next week. But in actual fact, to do a promotion correctly, I'll retract that and say to do a promotion that gets you the biggest return on your investment is not generally something that you just throw out overnight. It's something that you have taken the time to create and then implement and set goals and targets for, and then deployed, and then come back and debriefed. And there are so many people who are responsible for all those bits and pieces. And even if it is just you, if you're working on your own, there are so many intricate little pieces of that puzzle that if you don't know how long each of those take, then we severely underestimate what it's going to take to get the job done. And I know that for me, because I work so fast, that's probably the biggest eye-opener for me is things aren't as quick as I think they are.
Correct. Yes, and it's fine. Like for me, like there are things that okay, right now, since for example, I'm working with Sam and Cooper, right? So, like for example, if Sam is gonna ask me something, in my mind, okay, this is gonna be easier if I just go in and do it. But also but in my mind also, like, but if I do that and he starts to rely on that as well, then we're not really improving the process. We're not.
We're going to end up exactly where we were earlier on this year.
Yes, correct. So rather than do it that way, I actually had like I would say a change in mindset in the sense that okay, now what are the things that Sam would need so that he can deliver that part of what I need. Like I know like the first part it's gonna be tedious because if ever I need to record the video, I need to aside from put out the Asana task, it would also be better. So like lately what I'm doing, so in IT, there's what you call pair programming, wherein like you sit side by side if you're together in one space, and then like you do pair programming so that it's a little bit faster, so that it's because it's two brains in one, right? So right now that's what I'm trying to do with Sam in the sense that when he's working, he has questions. I get to actually get the information I need to put in our template. And then also I get to give him what he needs in terms of like being able. So like even if at this point I need to do that, I take that opportunity to be able to enrich our template step by step. Because now I would see, oh, okay, I just do it because that's my default. Like for example, I know that Sal wants the images to be lined up. Like in my mind, it's automatic. I will touch this one because, but I did think that it was an automatic thing for me. But for with Sam, I needed to tell him. So it's like, okay, so in the checklist, I need to put there like make sure that the images are aligned, make sure that the capitalization are this and that, and then he needs to make sure that he reads the email as well. It's not like just a plain copy paste. So those type of things I would only really see from somebody outside, because I think that's what you're saying as well, right? When you mentioned that opening a store is totally different from your expectation versus the people who would be doing it. So that for me, that is the explanation also on my side, like looking at it, oh, okay, so that's what he needs. And then for me, okay, so that's what I need to provide him so that it will be easier for him to do it. And having our checklist right now, because I also still have stuff to do, like, think of what the things I need to check off in the morning and those type. I know it took a while for me to get there as well, but being able to remove thinking what you need to do and just like, be able to go into Asana and see, oh, these are the things that I need to do today. It takes such a big chunk of relief that you have somewhere that you can go.
Yeah, that's
So
you're talking
yeah.
about you created a beginning of day and end of day checklist inside of Asana. And
Yes.
you kept saying to me, but I write it down in my notebook. I write it down in my notebook. And I said, but I don't get to see your notebook. And so I go in there and I think you've got this much work, but your
Yeah.
notebook says you've got this much
Yeah.
work. And so by putting the beginning of day and end of day in there as just if nothing else aside, what you're saying is the mental load of, I don't have
Yeah.
my notebook with me, or I remember I said I told Sal I would get this thing done. All that goes away because it just sits there and you
Yeah.
just work through it.
Yes, yes. Yeah. So like even if I know that I still have like backlogs, it's easy for me to see that okay, I think I have like 2 hours that I can spare today. I can easily get a task and then start to work on it and then move on. So I don't need to think about it. That extra step of like thinking, what is it that Sal wanted to do right now? Like, and then especially since we came up, like if it's urgent, like there's urgent. So like, because especially I think if, for example, we have something urgent, and then your mindset would suddenly need to change because you need to attend to that, and then you tend to for drop the other things that you're doing, going back to the things that you were originally doing. It will take time also, but if you have it in Asana, okay, I can just easily go back and see, okay, where was I at earlier? So I think that is the beauty of Asana for us right now.
So you mentioned something there that I think was you and I both have probably significantly changed the way we operate, which is making sure we are really clear when we dictate the outcome that we want. Because we have worked together so well, and we've had Elizabeth, and we've had such a small team that worked so well together. We quite often know what the other person wants, but now working with external contractors and having new hires, what we've realized is I can't say create an image anymore. What I need to be is very, very clear. I would like 3 images that say this and do this and at this size. And in fact, you said to me, I need an image. And the first thing I said was, where is it going? How big does it need to be? What resolution? If I don't
Yeah,
have that image, then I have friction again. And we're waiting for the other person to come back and answer the question. Whereas now we're getting much more clearer about putting as much information as possible into the task so that the person at the other end isn't waiting on us to come back and answer a question.
correct. So yeah, so that shaves off time. So actually in the book, I think he did give an example, like even if it's those small tasks, because it piles up. So the time that you spend on thinking of those things and then asking and waiting, it piles up and it becomes larger. So that's why like the the time gets longer as well. So but if we have it already there, so right now, for example, I would like add in our Asana, not just like the task, but inside the task, if for example there needs to be like information needed to be filled up, I'll add it in. Like for example, if it's an image, like what would be the specs, what would be like how many images, those type of things. So
Even the
you
page it's
can,
going on. So we can go
yes,
back and have a look, like it needs to fit
correct.
in with this.
Yes, correct. And also, for example, in terms of like the template that we use, like where our master copy, for example, the download that we're gonna build, it has also improved over the course of like I would say just a month. Just because we thought that like okay, as long as you have the headline, as long as you have the sub headline, those type so the subheader, and then the image, like it's gonna be easy to translate. But what we found out is like okay, if we just do this, it's not really gonna translate to what we have in our mind. So now, and I was like, okay, what are and then you said like, oh, can you have like an image where you would say that this is where it goes? I was like, and then actually I was like, oh, can I Google what are like the parts of a landing page? It's like, and then when I look at this, oh, so it's generic. Like in my mind, it's like, oh, it's generic, and like it really looks like that for across different companies. So when I take a look at ours, I was like, oh, okay, I can easily now identify. And now in our template, we do have that. We do have that image, that screenshot, and then like where it goes. So, and I also explained it actually to Cooper, like, okay, so here's a sample of the template. So just in case you get confused, like in the first part, we're in like it says landing page, like this is the sample of like the anatomy, a landing page, and then so that in your copy you can just specify, and if there's something else that you want, then you just need to specify in terms of like either a video or a screen cap of what you need done that's not in the template. So it's like it's quite easy. Like right now, it's not quite. It's easier to ask people for stuff, especially for those things, because now they have a visual. Okay, it's supposed to go here. Because initially what we have is like, oh, just give them a sample. Or like just give them, yeah, just give
Yeah.
them our old page. Usually that's our answer, right?
Yeah.
But
Whereas like an equivalent would be is if you were building out a product page on your website, this is the image I want first. Maybe it's the flat lay image. The second image should be a lifestyle image. The third image should be a close-up. And then when it comes to, the headline and what does the first paragraph contain? What does the second paragraph contain? So that if somebody new comes into your business, if you grow your business, there's a very standard template. Yes, the words are going to change, but the content still delivers at the same level on every single product page. And people aren't just trying, because people will try their hardest, but they don't know if they're getting it wrong, if they don't have the end goal and the end result. And this is what a successful thing looks like.
yes. And speaking of hardest, I remember I had this conversation with Sam because he was saying like, "Oh, I did this because the task that I was supposed to do is very easy," and I was like, "No, that's what we want. That's why we are templating things, and because we want it easy." So, in the sense that it's not that we're lazy, being lazy, it's that we want to get a lot of things done. If we want to reach a certain, for example, in sales for your product, if you want to be able to launch your products this fast, you want to be able to put this new product, you want to be able to be the first one to put this out in your website, right? You want it to be able to be uploaded as fast as you can. And how can you do that if you are like thinking, oh, what is the next image that I need? Unlike, for example, if you give somebody like, okay, this is the list of images that take the photo, send it out, edit. So it's a little bit faster. You get to be first in terms of delivering that product to your customers as well. So easy doesn't mean lazy. It's really just easy. Easy is like being more efficient for me right now. I mean, in terms of come up this framework.
Yeah. Easy does not mean easy at the beginning. I
Yes,
think we can
that's
both
true
agree on
too.
that. All
Yes,
right.
yes.
Tell me, let's go good. Let's go ugly, bad, good. What do you think has been the ugliest moment over the last few months?
Oh, the ugliest moment would be like when, because I'm still thinking and overthinking things, and I can't give you like the exact update of like where I am at in terms of rolling it out.
Mhm.
Because because as I mentioned, like starting, even if we have these things out, starting and putting it out. And I know, and yeah, so that is like most frustrating for me because in my mind, I know that I should be able to, because I love processes, I love systems. So in my mind, why is it not coming to me? Like, I mean, like I go through my Google Docs, I go through, it's like, it's here. Why can't I put it together? Why can't I, what, there's always that why. So I would say, and then like you would ask me, and I was like, I know that I'm still thinking, but of course, thinking isn't equivalent to being able to see something that you can check on. That is would be like for me the ugliest because it feels, of course, on your side it would feel like I'm not working, but on my side it's like I'm racking my brains out. My brain is fried from thinking of these things. For me, the good from that one though is I would say you always try to help me like clear out a step. So it was when you told me like, why don't you try to do a mind map of it? So that really helped me. So actually, I really appreciate, even if it's those small things, like I really appreciate those comments because, or those suggestions, because I was like, oh, and then actually after that one, it was a lot faster. I mean, it's still not fast, but it was a lot faster compared to like being so lost in it all and so overwhelming. I was able to, oh, okay, and then like we were able to at least start to discuss like, oh, and then I would be able to ask you, oh, does it make sense if it's here? Or and then you say, oh, I think you might put so at least now there is something tangible. So that I would say it was like a transition period for us when I was able to calm my mind and then, write it out, map it out. So I really, really appreciate moments like that with you because actually that time I really felt like okay, I'm really gonna claim it like Sal is my mentor in terms of these things. So because I say you know that I do have my own business. So it's very, very like helpful. Like, okay, this because what I saw there, Sal, is that you don't, even if you're frustrated with me, you still don't want me to fail. So I really super appreciate that part because like I'm frustrated at myself. But since you're the leader, you know that okay, she's already frustrated with herself. I cannot, put her down. Like how can I help her get to where I want her to be as well? So you
You, and
thinking
I'm
about
just going to jump in here. You
yeah.
make this sound really easy, but we have had some very heated discussions that
Yes.
have not been pretty. So, guys, it's not like Sal is an angel. We have had some very, very heated discussions where we've had to just like walk away because
Yes.
it wasn't productive. We were
Correct.
blaming and we were getting angry with each other, and I was feeling bad and you were feeling bad, and it was just like we just have to stop and then
Yeah.
come back later. So it was not like Sal is an angel, guys. Trust me on this. There have been some very, very messy moments along the way.
Yes. Yes. Yes, I will not, yeah, but it's just that now, like for me, it's more of like appreciating those moments because I think those were needed because it also like not just me, but I think it also helped you become, I would say, the way that you address issues right now, it has also changed over the past. Actually, I think it's all more than 2 years that we've been working together. So it has changed like when I first started and then like when we're just trying to get day by day, but now it's really also like trying to take care of the morale of the team. So it has, yes, it was ugly, but no company would not have that type, especially no business that would want to succeed would never ever have something like that. Like you would always need that because that is a catalyst for change. And change is not always pretty. It will definitely go through some fire.
And I think that this is where many businesses, and I said it, like I said it at the beginning, was there was a time where I just went, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. This is just too like we need people, we can't find people, the systems aren't working, we're behind. Like I didn't know if there was an out, but I had an option. It was like you keep going or you throw everything away. And like it's like, do you throw everything away just because something got really, really hard? I mean, yes, some people will. Some people
Correct.
aren't entrepreneurs. They aren't cut out for running a business. But just was it yesterday that we had our call and
Yes.
you were talking about this and you were smiling and you were laughing and you're like, this is like one of the best things we've done. So I guess in just, in 60 seconds, tell us where are we at and how do you feel now?
First of all, as I mentioned yesterday, right now I am feeling empowered just because right now, yes, the systems are still not 100%. But even if it's not 100%, I know that it's working. And I know that we are working together to get it to where we want it to be. So it is in place. We now know, we can easily see like, oh, these are the things that we need. So it is now easy to build out. And then once you get the ball rolling, like it's now easy. Like, for example, I translated that to the podcast, I translated that to the team onboarding. And then in my mind, like, oh, I'm listing all the different things that we need templated and those type of things to make our lives easier. And as I mentioned to Sal, what I want to do is to be able to take things off her plate so she can focus on making us money and helping other people along the way, because that's her goal. Actually, that's the reason why, like, I really like when I apply for your company, is because your goal is to help, I think it was like 50,000 retailers. That was your number before. I'm not sure if that's still the
Bigger
number, or
now.
it's a little, yeah, yeah, bigger now, right? So it's like, wow, like, I mean, yes, she wants to grow a business, but that wanting to help other people succeed, it's different. It's different. It's not just about her making money. So it's the same thing. And for me, that's the reason why I'm feeling empowered, because now, like, if we get things done faster, we get to reach to other people a lot more faster also. We get to help, even if I'm on the background, which I prefer, I get to help these people in my own way through the background. So yeah, we're not 100% there yet, but we are definitely, I would say, at least 50%, because we have started to put the things in place. We have the KB that is working, and then we just really need to add stuff as we go along. And then the templates, we are already starting to templatize things, and it gets the job done easier for our team members as well.
All right. So, what one piece of advice? First of all, thank you for coming out and being outside of your comfort zone and getting on camera. But what one piece of advice would you want people who are listening to take away?
One piece of advice. Oh, this is challenging. But for me, I think try not to overthink things. I know it sounds easy, but if you need a soundboard, just talk to either your superior, your boss, or like friends as a start. That really helps, because if it weren't for our talks, we I won't be able to tell you like why I'm not do like it's not that I'm not doing anything, it's why I'm not being why I haven't been able to start.
Yeah.
So yeah, communication is key. Yeah, I think that is it.
And you can
Communication
always
is
rip
key.
up the first draft, but you need to have
Yes,
the first draft.
correct. Yeah, like you need to have that first draft so that you can improve on that one. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Al.
When I work with retail and e-commerce store owners who want to sell their businesses, I tell them that it takes a minimum, even if you work super fast, even if you think you already have processes in place, it takes a minimum of 18 months to get your business to a point where you can sell. And most people do not believe me. And most businesses do not have the level of systems and processes in place that meant if they sold today, if someone came up and wrote the check of your dreams, that the person who bought that business could walk in and everything would be seamless. They don't have that. They think, like I did, that they have that. But the reality is, it doesn't take much to get someone else to go through your system who's never done the thing before, through your process, and see if they end up with the exact same result every single time. We move fast in our business. It is in our job descriptions. It is one of the things that we do when we put people through our application process. And when we onboard, we have a schedule for people to move fast. That's just the way I like to work. But in 5 months, we have only just managed to get to a stage where but like Joed said, we are only at 50%, and we are at 50% of probably 20% of what we need to do that we know about. I suspect there is 80% more that we haven't even thought about that needs to be done. So in 5 months, we're at 50%. I reckon it's going to take another 2 years to get to the point where we're really, really happy with the systems and processes in our business. And so, whether you're overwhelmed, whether you're thinking that maybe you would love to sell your business one day, or whether you just want to free up some mental bandwidth and have people take stuff off your plate, I really hope that this episode has been insightful for you, because hilariously enough, it took us a month to record this episode. Yes, 4 Fridays we had this call booked in, and every Thursday afternoon I would move it because I didn't think we were at a point where we could get on and do this podcast and feel like we'd even had a moment of success. And then yesterday, just yesterday, in my call with Joed, the transformation was absolutely astounding. She got on that call and she was so excited to tell me all of the things that she'd done and all of the ideas she was having. And I hadn't seen that spark for quite some time. And so until I knew that we could do this podcast and relay back to you that it is a success and there is 100% light at the end of the tunnel. But you know what? There's a really good chance that it's going to be a very, very messy in the middle, that I didn't want to record that podcast. So I hope that this podcast has been insightful for you. And if you need any help putting all these systems in place for your business, if you need help to scale and grow, send me a DM. I would love it if you could share this episode with another business owner. And I look forward to seeing you back here again next week. And I hope that 2025 is all that you want it to be.